Sometimes life brings us to places we never imagined. Places where we're tested in ways we didn't think possible. This is a story about one of those moments. A story about a woman named Sophia Martinez, a billionaire named Vincent Reed, and two little girls who had forgotten how to smile. Let me take you back to where it all began. Picture this: a small apartment in the Bronx. The kind where you can hear your neighbors through the walls, where the pipes clang at night, and where every dollar has to be counted twice. That's where Sophia lived. She was only 24 years old, but her hands already knew the weight of hard work. Scrubbing floors, washing dishes in other people's homes, taking any cleaning job she could find just to help her mother and her younger brother, Miguel. Miguel had dreams, big dreams. He wanted to be an engineer. And Sophia? She had promised him she would make it happen, no matter what it took. One evening, as she stood at the kitchen sink rinsing plates, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She dried her hands on her jeans and answered. "Hello. Good evening. Am I speaking with Miss Sophia Martinez?" Her chest tightened. "Yes, this is Sophia. This is calling from Reed Estate Management. You applied for a live-in nanny position 2 weeks ago." Sophia's breath caught. She had applied to so many jobs, she barely remembered which was which anymore. "You've been shortlisted," the voice continued. "The role is to care for Mr. Vincent Reed's twin daughters, Isabella and Gabriella. The salary is generous. Accommodation is included. Are you available to start immediately?" For a moment, Sophia couldn't speak. Then she found her voice. Yes, sir. I'm available." The voice gave her an address in Manhattan's Upper East Side. "Report by 8 a.m. tomorrow." When the call ended, Sophia leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. Manhattan, the Upper East Side, a world she had only seen in movies. "Mama," she called softly, stepping into the small living room. "I got the job." Her mother looked up, and a smile broke across her tired face. "God has done it, my child." "It's live-in," Sophia added quietly. "I'll be away." Her mother reached for her hand, squeezing it firmly. "Go and do your best. Those children need love. Give it to them." Then she added, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Me and Miguel will be fine. Don't worry about us." From the corner, Miguel looked up. He didn't say anything, but his eyes held a quiet pride. That look alone was enough to steady Sophia's heart. That night, she packed a small bag. 3 dresses. 1 good blouse. A pair of worn shoes. She stood in front of the mirror, rehearsing what she would say when she met the family. Before bed, her mother came to the doorway holding something small in her hand. A Bible. She pressed it into Sophia's palm. "For courage," she said softly. Then she looked into Sophia's eyes and spoke words that would carry her through the storm ahead. "Remember, my daughter. Love melts stone faster than fire." Sophia smiled, clutching the Bible to her chest. "I will remember, Mama." Sleep didn't come easily that night. She lay staring at the ceiling, wondering what waited for her on the other side of the city. She thought about the babies she had comforted in the market, the children she had seen cry and laugh. She whispered into the darkness, "Lord, carry me where I cannot carry myself." She didn't know yet that she was walking into a mansion filled with grief. A home where laughter had died. A place where 3 nannies before her had already broken and walked away. All she knew was that she had to try. The next morning, Sophia stood before massive iron gates that looked like they belonged to a castle. The taxi driver had already pulled away, leaving her alone with her small bag and racing heart. A guard stepped out of the gatehouse, his face hard and suspicious. "Yes, who are you here for?" "Good morning, sir," Sophia said, steadying her voice. "I'm Sophia Martinez. I was told to report for the nanny position." He studied her for a long moment. Then he pressed a button, and the gates began to open. What Sophia saw next took her breath away. The estate stretched before her like something from a dream. Marble walkways, tall glass windows reflecting the morning sky, perfectly trimmed hedges. Everything gleamed with wealth and perfection. She whispered under her breath, "God, don't let me be small here." A tall woman appeared at the top of the steps. She wore gray from head to toe, her hair pulled back so tightly it looked painful. Her eyes were sharp as knives. "You must be the new nanny," the woman said flatly. "Yes, ma'am," Sophia replied, bowing her head slightly. "I am Mrs. Peterson. I manage this house." She paused, letting her eyes sweep over Sophia from head to toe. "I will tell you the truth. Nannies don't last here. The last 3 left in less than a month." Sophia's stomach dropped. Three. Mrs. Peterson repeated coldly. Mr. Reed is particular. And the twins are a lot. They walked through a grand foyer that smelled faintly of lemon and polish. The walls rose high, covered with framed photographs. Sophia's eyes caught on them as they passed. A tall man in a dark suit standing beside a beautiful woman with warm, laughing eyes. 2 tiny babies in her arms. Wedding photos. Beach vacations. Christening gowns. Then nothing. Just bare wall. As if someone had pressed stop on life itself. The silence in those empty spaces spoke louder than any words. At the far end of the living room, a man stood by a massive window, his back to them. He was tall, dressed in an expensive suit, his posture rigid. Mr. Reed, Mrs. Peterson said. This is the nanny. He turned slowly, deliberately. Vincent Reed's face was strong and handsome, but his eyes were darker than Sophia expected. Tired, guarded, like someone who had stopped believing in anything soft. You're Sophia Martinez, he said. Not a question. A statement. Yes, sir. You've worked with children before? Yes, sir. His jaw tightened. My children are difficult. We've had challenges with nannies. I expect competence, not chaos. Sophia met his gaze and held it steady. I understand, sir. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, as if he were testing her. Then he looked away. Their names are Isabella and Gabriella. Izzy and Ellie. They're 2 years old. His voice cracked, just slightly. They were very close to their mother. She's gone. Since then, they don't trust anyone. Sophia's voice softened. I'm sorry, sir. He nodded once, cutting off any more sympathy. The schedule is strict. Meals at 8, 12, 4, and 7. Naps at 10 and 2, when they allow it. Keep them safe. Do not disturb me unless absolutely necessary. Then, from somewhere upstairs, came a sound that made Sophia's heart clench. Crying. 2 voices. Sharp as sirens. Climbing higher and higher together. Vincent's jaw tightened. They're awake. He looked at Sophia, his eyes hard. Let's see if you meant what you said. The nursery is on the 2nd floor. Mrs. Peterson will show you. He paused. If you fail, you leave immediately. Sophia straightened her shoulders. I won't fail, sir. Mrs. Peterson's eyes narrowed as she led Sophia toward the staircase. You people always say that, she muttered under her breath. At the nursery door, Sophia stopped. She took one deep breath. Then she pushed it open. The nursery was beautiful. White curtains. Soft toys lined perfectly on shelves. 2 cribs carved with delicate detail. Everything a child could need. But beauty couldn't silence the storm. Both little girls were crying. Not gentle tears. Not soft whimpers. These were the cries of children who had learned that the world was cruel. That people left. That love didn't stay. Izzy, the bolder twin, stood in her crib with red-faced fury. She grabbed a toy block and hurled it to the floor. The crack of plastic on marble echoed like a gunshot. Ellie clutched a blue blanket to her chest, sobbing in waves that seemed to crash over and over, each one bigger than the last. Mrs. Peterson stood in the doorway for a moment, arms folded. She had seen this before. 3 times. Each time, the new nanny had cracked within days. She shook her head and pulled the door shut behind her. Sophia was alone now. Alone with the storm. She knelt by Izzy's crib. The child threw another toy, nearly hitting Sophia's shoulder. Sophia didn't flinch. She picked it up, dusted it off, and placed it gently back. You can throw it again if you like, she murmured softly. I'll still be here. Then she turned to Ellie. The little girl's wide, tear-filled eyes locked onto Sophia's face. Sophia reached through the crib bars and gently touched the edge of the blue blanket. Hold it tight, Ellie, she whispered. I'm not going anywhere. She tried everything. Bottles pressed to tiny lips, rejected. Rocking them in her aching arms, more screams. Checking diapers, no help. Nothing worked. Hours passed. Sweat soaked through Sophia's uniform. Her back ached. Her arms trembled. The clock on the wall blinked 2 a.m. But Sophia didn't leave. Instead, she sat cross-legged on the floor. She lifted both twins into her lap, one on each side. And then she began to hum. It was a lullaby her mother had sung on hot summer nights when the power went out. A tune with no words. Just a thread of steady, unbreaking sound. Slowly, so slowly, Izzy's wails fell into ragged whimpers. Ellie's sobs dissolved into soft hiccups. The room grew quiet. For the first time that night, silence stretched between the cribs. Sophia exhaled, tears streaming down her own face now. Thank you, God, she whispered. At the door, unseen in the shadows, Vincent Reed stood with his hands in his pockets. He had braced himself for the usual ending. Another nanny crushed by his daughter's grief. Another person walking away. But instead, he found Sophia, humming low, holding them close, her patience unshaken where others had shattered. For a moment, he saw his wife's shadow there. The same calm strength. The same refusal to let go. The memory hit him like a fist to the chest. Raw. Painful. Vincent turned away quickly, retreating down the hall like a man who had touched fire. In the nursery, Sophia leaned her head back against the crib bars. Both twins curled against her chest, their breathing soft and steady now. She whispered into the quiet, "If you wake again, wake me too. We'll cry together if we must." By morning, the mansion was waiting for the old story to repeat itself. But something had changed. A new chapter had begun. And no one knew yet how far Sophia would take it. Morning came, but it didn't bring peace. Izzy refused her breakfast, turning her head away like a tiny queen rejecting her servants. Ellie would only eat if Sophia sang between each spoonful. So Sophia hummed. Spoon song smile. Half the food ended up on the floor, but at least some went into their mouths. By 10 o'clock, nap time arrived. And that's when the real battle began. Izzy snatched Ellie's pink blanket. Ellie screamed, pulling it back with surprising strength for such a small child. Their cries clashed like alarms going off at the same time. Sophia moved quickly. She pulled the blanket from their tiny tug-of-war, kissed it gently, and pressed it against Izzy's cheek. "This one smells like a cuddle," she whispered. Izzy froze, suspicious. Then slowly, she tucked it under her chin. Ellie clutched her blue blanket, sniffled once, then sighed with relief. Finally, silence. Two little bodies sank into sleep. Sophia slumped against the crib, her chest rising and falling like she'd just run a race. Her arms ached. Her hair stuck to her forehead with sweat. But the room was still. Her phone buzzed. "Mama." Sophia slipped into the hallway, answering in a whisper. "Mama." Her mother's voice came through the line, calm and steady like an anchor in a storm. "I just wanted to hear you, my child. How are you holding up?" Sophia's throat tightened. She glanced back at the nursery door. "It's hard, Mama, but I'm still here." A soft laugh came through the phone, warm and unshaken. "Of course you are. You've always had patience in your bones." Her mother paused. "Don't forget, love melts stone faster than fire." Sophia closed her eyes, letting the words wrap around her like armor. "Yes, Mama." The call ended. But Sophia knew this peace would only last a few minutes. And she was right. When the twins woke up, chaos returned. They began tossing crackers from their high chairs, one by one, like they were testing her, seeing how long she would last. Sophia bent down again and again, picking up every crumb, wiping every surface, swallowing her frustration like bitter medicine. From the doorway, Mrs. Peterson appeared. Her sharp eyes narrowed. She had seen this scene before. Food on the floor. Toddlers in rebellion. Nannies on the verge of breaking. But what she saw this time stopped her cold. Sophia wasn't crying. She wasn't yelling. She was sitting cross-legged on the rug, calm as the morning sky. Izzy leaned over her shoulder, combing Sophia's hair with a plastic fork. Ellie, giggling softly now, pressed cracker-stained fingers against Sophia's cheek, as if marking her as their own. Sophia let them. She smiled through the crumbs and mess. "If we make a mess," she said with a wink, "we clean it together, okay?" Mrs. Peterson blinked, confused. Then she left without saying a word. And for the first time in that house, the nursery didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt almost like a home. By afternoon, whispers began to spread through the mansion. The driver walked past the nursery twice, pretending he had something to do upstairs. The housekeeper dusted the hallway longer than necessary, stealing glances through the door. Everyone wanted to see if Sophia would survive her second day. The twins were famous in this house. Not because they were adorable, though they were, with their soft curls and button noses. They were famous for breaking grown women. But now Sophia was still here. Tired, yes. But her voice was calm. Her song was steady. Her arms were strong. In the kitchen that evening, the cook shook his head. "This one won't last," he muttered. "Not with those twins. Nobody can." The housekeeper glanced toward the stairs, her voice dropping to a whisper. "She's lasted 2 days. Through the night. Through the chaos. That's already a miracle." Upstairs, in the quiet of the nursery, Sophia folded tiny clothes into neat squares. She looked at the sleeping twins and whispered, "Small progress is still progress." In the hallway, Vincent paused by the door. He listened, not to crying, but to silence. For a long moment, he didn't know whether to step inside or stay hidden. His jaw clenched. His chest tightened. Then he walked away. The house believed it was only a matter of time before Sophia broke. But that afternoon, Sophia decided to try something different. Something simple that would change everything. Thursday started like any other day. But by noon, something was wrong. Izzy pushed away her lunch with unusual force. Her cheeks, normally flushed with energy, looked pale. Sophia touched her forehead. Warm. Too warm. By 1 o'clock, Ellie's skin was burning too. Her small body went limp against Sophia's chest. Sophia's stomach dropped. She checked the thermometer twice. Both twins had fevers climbing fast. "Mrs. Peterson," she called, her voice steady but urgent. The house manager entered, frowning. "What now?" "They're burning up. I need to see Mr. Reed." "He traveled this morning," Mrs. Peterson said flatly. "Business trip. He won't be back until tomorrow." Sophia didn't wait for permission. She packed a small bag, diapers, wipes, bottles, thin blankets. She lifted both girls onto her hips and told the driver firmly, "Nearest hospital." "Now!" The driver blinked at her authority, but obeyed. The emergency room hit her senses all at once. Bright lights. The sharp smell of antiseptic. Nurses moving quickly in all directions. Izzy whimpered weakly. Ellie had stopped crying, which frightened Sophia more than any scream. A doctor rushed them in immediately. "High fevers. We'll start fluids and monitor their vitals." Sophia stood aside, her lips moving in silent prayer. "God, please. Not them. Not now. Wires. Beeping machines. Cool cloths pressed to tiny foreheads." Izzy's small hand searched blindly until Sophia caught it. Ellie's eyelids fluttered as a nurse adjusted her foreline. Sophia leaned close, whispering, "Stay with me, my queens. I won't leave you." Hours blurred together. The chairs grew harder. Her back ached from leaning. Her eyes burned from refusing to close. But she never moved far from those beds. Back at the mansion, Vincent returned earlier than expected. He stepped into the quiet nursery. Empty cribs. No note. His chest tightened like a vice. He stormed through the halls. "Where are my girls?" His voice cracked with panic. Mrs. Peterson wrung her hands. "Hospitals, sir. They had fevers." Sophia took them. He didn't wait. He was already out the door. At the hospital, Sophia bent over the twins, brushing damp curls from their faces, when a shadow fell across the room. Vincent. His eyes scanned everything, wires, monitors, pale cheeks, and then locked on Sophia. "You should have called me," he snapped, his voice raw with fear and anger. Sophia's throat tightened. "I did, sir. Multiple times." He closed his eyes. The anger collapsed into something heavier. Guilt. Regret. "No," he said quietly. "I'm sorry. You did right." He moved to Izzy's side, taking her tiny hand as if it were made of glass. Sophia stood opposite, holding Ellie's. Between them lay two little girls, fragile and burning, and the undeniable truth that they were not enemies. Not employer and employee. They were two adults fighting for the same children. Near dawn, the fever broke. Izzy's breathing deepened into real sleep. Ellie's temperature dropped back to normal. The doctor smiled. "They're turning the corner." Sophia pressed both hands to her face, whispering through tears, "Thank you, God." Vincent exhaled as if a weight the size of a building had lifted from his shoulders. He looked at Sophia across the hospital beds, his eyes tired but clear. "Thank you," he said, "for not leaving." Sophia shook her head softly. "They're my girls too, at least in my heart." Something shifted in him. He didn't say the words out loud, but they hung in the air between them, as real as the beeping machines. "Mine too." By the time the twins were discharged, Vincent knew Sophia was more than a nanny. But he also knew the shadows of grief still lived in his heart. And they wouldn't let go easily. The drive back from the hospital was quiet. The kind of silence that follows a storm. Izzy slept on Sophia's lap, her thumb in her mouth. Ellie leaned against Vincent's chest, her breathing soft and steady. Back at the mansion, Sophia settled the girls in their cribs with cool cloths and whispered prayers. Vincent lingered in the doorway, his jacket off, sleeves rolled up. His eyes stayed on the twins long after Sophia finished tucking them in. When she moved to leave, his voice stopped her. "My wife's name was Elena," he said quietly. Sophia turned, surprised by the softness in his tone. "She loved mornings," Vincent continued. "She'd sit on the patio with tea, talking to the babies before they were born. She swore they could hear her dreams. He gave a small, broken laugh. After they came, everything changed. There were complications. Nights full of fear. I told myself if I just worked harder, I could fix it. His voice cracked. But work doesn't fix what love breaks. For a moment, he looked less like a billionaire and more like a man who had lost his way. Sophia leaned against the doorframe, listening. She knew grief wasn't something you argued with. It was like the tide. You let it come and go until it was tired. She would have liked you, Vincent said suddenly, meeting Sophia's eyes. His voice grew rough. Thank you. For staying. For not leaving when it got loud. Sophia lowered her eyes. I know loud, sir. My father left when I was small. The house kept shouting even when no one was talking. Vincent's gaze lingered. How did you stop it? Sophia gave a faint smile. I didn't. I just sang louder. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Izzy stirred in her crib. Sophia crossed quickly, laying a steady palm on the child's chest until her breathing slowed. Vincent watched. The wild rhythm calmed under Sophia's touch, like she carried peace in her fingertips. Something inside him shifted. He had built walls high enough to keep grief in and love out. But in that moment, he realized the walls were crumbling. He drew a breath, his voice quieter than the hum of the air conditioner. Teach me, he said. Sophia looked up, puzzled. Teach you. He nodded once, his eyes open and raw. Teach me to be what they need. Sophia blinked, caught off guard by the humility in his tone. Then her lips curved into a gentle smile. Okay, we start small. We start now. That evening, Vincent held a bottle for the first time while Sophia guided his hands. It was awkward, stiff, clumsy, but it was also the beginning of something no nanny had ever managed before. A father learning to come home to his children. Over the next few weeks, lessons became part of the rhythm of the house. Let Izzy choose between two toys, Sophia coached. She likes control. It makes her feel big. Wait 5 seconds before stepping in, she added another day. Sometimes they can calm themselves if you give them the chance. She showed him how to read the difference between a hungry cry and a tired cry. How to carry Ellie close when her fear rose. How to hum off-key but steady, because the sound mattered more than the tune. Vincent tried. He failed. He tried again. His expensive shirts caught milk stains. His hands fumbled with diaper tabs. But every time he looked ready to retreat, Sophia's steady voice pulled him back. Small steps, Mr. Reed. They add up. The staff began to notice. Mr. Reed is different, the cook whispered. He smiles at walls now. I saw him carrying Izzy on his chest during a phone call, the driver muttered. Imagine a board meeting with baby drool. Even Mrs. Peterson, who had once sharpened her eyes like knives, now lingered longer at the nursery door. Her suspicion was slowly bending toward something softer. One afternoon, the heat pressed hard against the mansion's glass walls. The nursery felt too closed, too heavy. Sophia made a decision. She dragged a large plastic basin onto the patio and filled it with cool water. When she carried the twins outside, Mrs. Peterson appeared in the doorway. What are you doing? Letting them breathe, Sophia said simply. Izzy and Ellie sat in the basin, their little toes curling as the cool water touched their skin. They hesitated, unsure. Sophia crouched beside them, dipped her hand in and splashed gently. See, just water. Play. Izzy blinked. Ellie clutched the rim. Then Sophia lifted the hose and let a soft spray fall over their heads. Izzy squealed sharp, high bright. Ellie gasped, then burst into giggles. Little hands slapped the water. Little feet kicked and splashed. From the veranda, Vincent stopped mid-phone call. His voice trailed off. He lowered the phone from his ear. There, on the patio, his daughters were laughing. Real deep belly laughter. He hadn't heard that sound since Elena died. Then, without warning, he bent low, picked up the hose, and aimed it toward the basin. A thin stream of water arched through the air and fell gently over Izzy and Ellie. The girls gasped, then burst into even brighter laughter. Sophia's head snapped up, eyes wide, only to be caught in the spray herself. She gasped in mock outrage. Ah, so you've joined the fight. Vincent laughed. Awkward at first. Rough, like a sound unused for too long. But real. Sophia tugged the hose from his hand and sprayed him right back. Water soaked his shirt. His smile widened, unguarded at last. For the first time, Vincent wasn't standing apart, watching through glass. He was inside the joy. From the window, Mrs. Peterson whispered to the cook, Mr. Reed is smiling in the sun. This house is not the same anymore. And for those few wild minutes, there were no walls. No rules. No mansion weighed down by sorrow. There was only a father, a nanny, and two little girls, soaked to the skin and laughing like they had always belonged together. One quiet evening, after the twins had fallen asleep early, Sophia sat at the small table in the nursery, folding freshly washed clothes. Vincent stood by the window, his hands deep in his pockets, his silhouette outlined against the city lights. He turned toward her, his shoulders heavy, but his eyes open in a way they hadn't been since Elena's death. "Sophia," he said at last, his voice low. She looked up, waiting. "You came here to do a job," he began slowly. "But you've done more than that. You brought joy back to my daughters." He paused. "You brought me back to them." Sophia's breath caught. "I don't want you to remain only staff," Vincent continued. "I want you to be family." The room went still. "What are you asking, sir?" Sophia's voice was barely a whisper. He swallowed hard. "Will you stay? Not just as their nanny, but as my partner. Will you be the mother they grow up with?" His voice broke. "Will you marry me?" Silence held them. Not heavy. Holy. Sophia's breath trembled. "You can say no," Vincent said quickly. "I will never make your job unsafe. You have a life. A brother. Dreams I don't know yet. But if there's a door open in your heart, even a small one, I want to stand there and ask." Sophia gave a shaky laugh, a tear slipping down her cheek. "You stand very well for someone who once ran from feelings." A small smile curved his lips. "I had a good teacher." Her eyes drifted to the cribs where the twins slept peacefully, unaware that their world was shifting again. She thought of the day she walked into this mansion with a small bag and a big fear. She thought of tantrums, fevers, laughter in the basin. She thought of how grief had turned into something like hope. "Yes," she whispered. Vincent's shoulders dropped with relief. His eyes glistened. For a moment, he looked younger, like a man finally allowed to breathe. He didn't move to kiss her. He only reached for her hand, holding it gently but firmly, as though anchoring himself to a new promise. There, in the room where everything had broken, something new was being built. The wedding was intimate, simple, held in a quiet chapel with soft light streaming through stained glass windows. No flashing cameras, no crowds, just Sophia and Vincent, standing before the people they loved most. The twins, Izzy and Ellie, sat beside Sophia's mother, dressed in white lace, clapping their tiny hands as if they understood the significance of the moment. Sophia wore a simple gown, elegant and timeless. Vincent stood beside her in a gray suit, his eyes soft and filled with tenderness. He no longer looked like the distant billionaire. Now he was open, vulnerable, present. Their vows were quiet but powerful. Promises made not just to each other, but in the presence of God and family. Sophia's mother sat in the front row, tears streaming down her face. She had always wanted her daughter to find a love that would protect her, support her, and nurture her. Today, she saw that love standing right before her. As Sophia and Vincent exchanged rings, they shared a look that said everything. This was the beginning of something beautiful. Not just a marriage, a family. One evening, weeks later, they all sat together on the patio. No basin today, just a soft blanket spread on the ground, slices of mango on a plate, and the twins leaning sleepily against their parents. The warm New York wind brushed their faces as the city hummed faintly in the distance. Traffic, sirens, the sound of life. Vincent looked at his daughters, then at Sophia. "I never thought they would smile again," he said softly. Sophia's eyes warmed. "They were waiting for you." He glanced at her, a half-smile tugging at his lips. "And for you." A light flickered on in the garden. The house, once silent with grief, now breathed as if it were alive again. The twins dozed, heavy with the happy tiredness of children who had played well. Vincent reached for Sophia's hand under the blanket. She squeezed it once. Steady. The mansion seemed to listen. And if walls could smile, these ones did. Because Sophia did not run. She stayed. And because she stayed, the house learned to laugh again. Sometimes the most powerful change comes from the most unexpected places. Sophia Martinez was once just a stranger in a mansion. But today, she's the heart that made it a home. The woman who came to care for two little girls became the one who healed a grieving family. Her journey may have started as a job, but it ended with a legacy of love that will never fade. If this story moved you, let us know in the comments. Tell us where in the world you're watching from. And remember, love really does melt stone faster than fire.